Welcome to Juvenile Justice. I'm Bonnie Glenn. Today we're talking about the Family Law CASA program of King County. A CASA is a court-appointed special advocate, a volunteer trained to investigate and report on the best interests of a child in a court case. In high-risk custody cases, parents are often unable to focus on the needs of their children. Many of these children are so young they cannot speak for themselves. CASAs give these children a voice. Here with us to talk more about the CASA program is Executive Director Carolyn Davis and former Superior Court Judge Michael Spearman, current board member of the Family Law CASA. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you, Bonnie.
You know, first of all, a lot of people, they kind of know what CASA is. What is CASA? What does it stand for?
Well, CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate. So we use volunteers from the community who've gone through a 4-day training to learn to be an advocate for a child in a contested custody case.
And as far as how long have you been around?
Family Law CASA has been a nonprofit program since 2003. And prior to that, it was a county-funded program for about 20 years, lost funding and budget cuts back in 2001, and then was restarted as a nonprofit agency.
And how large are you?
We have 5 staff members. We have about 188 volunteers right now. So.
Wow, that's excellent. You know, it's one of those things, as we talked about with families themselves going through disputes and, you know, family law matters, you know, it's so important to make sure there's somebody there to help, you know, on behalf of the youth, to help give that information that's so necessary. You know, what kind of value do these CASA workers add?
I'm going to let Judge Spearman answer that, I think.
Making a decision about how to reconfigure a family after a dissolution is probably one of the most important decisions that a judge is going to make. It can have lifelong repercussions on the children. It can have devastating consequences for the children, and so what a judge will try to do is to figure out ways to mitigate whatever those consequences or negative consequences might be. The judge's job is to make sure that whatever he or she does is in the best interest of the children, to determine a parenting plan that will best suit the needs of the child, will address any special needs that the child has. The only way to find out about those things is having someone make some sort of objective assessment or investigation into those issues. Talk to the children, talk to the parents, talk to the doctors, talk to teachers, talk to grandparents, and learn as much as you can about the child so that then the CASA volunteer can make a recommendation about what sort of parenting plan is in the child's best interest. Without that kind of information, the judge is not able to make an objective, fair decision that will be in the child's best interest.
Now, how does someone become a CASA volunteer? How does that? What kind of criteria do you have in order to become one?
Well, they can apply online at our website, and we are looking for people anywhere from 21 years on up. We have volunteers as old as in their 70s. They do need to have a car because they're going to go out and see families at their home. They need to have a computer to be able to write their report and send it to us, and be inquisitive and interested, and also have sufficient time. The training, as I said, takes 4 days, which is a big commitment. And cases can last anywhere from 4 to 12 months. The average time for a case can be about 50 to 60 hours, but we've had volunteers spend more than 100 hours on a case. So.
Wow. You know, as far as, you know, fulfillment, I can imagine that this is very fulfilling to do this type of work. Mm-hmm. I know, Carolyn, once you used to be a CASA volunteer yourself at one time.
I was a volunteer many years ago when it was still a county program, yes. Mm-hmm. So.
And just like as far as your experience with it, how was it as a volunteer?
It's very interesting. You're going out, you're meeting people in their homes, you're talking to them about things that are most important to them about their children and what they want and how they see the future. You're meeting and talking to these children individually. calling other people, as Judge Bierman mentioned, writing a report. You get to appear in court, so you have interaction with the judicial system and see how court works for these families. So.
And I was just going to add, I think that's one of the most important things that volunteers can get out of this process. Not only do they get to do a wonderful thing for families and particularly for children, but they really get to see the judicial system and see how it works from the inside, and not very many people get that opportunity. You get to present your recommendation to a judge. You have the assistance of a lawyer, usually Carolyn, who will help you in doing that. You get a chance to speak with the other lawyers involved and the other court personnel. And often you're called as a witness to actually get put under oath and testify in court and be cross-examined. Not very many people have that experience, and so it's a really good chance to learn a lot about our justice system and certainly, in my view, see how well our justice system can function.
And so for the age, what's the cap, the youngest? Someone can volunteer, is
21 years old.
So it is 21. So, but as far as that, and they have to have a car,
right,
to make sure that they go out. And what about the reports? That seems like a lot of responsibility. However, it sounds like you have assistance from your director.
The staff supervises a volunteer all the way through a case, and we have a template we use for reports that we send to volunteers ahead. Part of the initial training is on report writing, but volunteers are expected to write a report anywhere from, say, 15 to 20 pages. So we do want people who are willing to write and have some experience writing. The application also has a small essay portion so we can see about writing skills.
How do the individuals who are involved in the family law case get connected with the CASA volunteer? Can you tell me how that works?
It can happen in a number of ways. Sometimes one of the family members will bring a motion asking for appointment of a CASA or a guardian ad litem, and other times I know judges or commissioners will, on their own initiative, appoint a CASA volunteer. And then we get notified at the office that we've been appointed on a case and proceed from there.
And
what often happens is more and more, because of the current economic times that we're in, we see more and more pro ses or people who are representing themselves trying to fathom the workings of the family law court and manage their way through in handling a dissolution. And they'll make an appearance in front of the judge, and the judge will see that things are it's going to be difficult for that family to actually provide the kind of information that's necessary to make a good decision about what's in the best interest of the child. And if I believe it's $70,000 now, if they have a joint income of less than $70,000, then the court will consider whether or not appointment of a court-appointed special advocate would be appropriate in that case.
Now tell me a little bit about the people that are being served. I mean, as far as, in fact, if you're a volunteer for CASA, who are the people that usually you're advocating on behalf, or at least trying to, get the best information so the court and people involved can make the right decisions?
Well, we're working on dissolution cases, which is attorney speak for divorce, also paternity cases, so people who've had a child together but weren't married. We do work on third-party custody cases, and that's where someone other than the parent is asking for primary custody of a child, and cases known as modifications, which are people coming back to court to change primary custody. The families are all sorts of varieties here in King County. We do work out of the Kent courthouse, we do work out of the downtown courthouse, so we have people living all over the county. More in the lower income ranges than higher. We're seeing some now who were in higher income range but have lost jobs, and so now are fitting into our program. All varieties of ethnic, minority, racial mixes, and it's just the real mix that is King County. So.
And Judge Bierman, what about the volunteers? I know obviously it's been wonderful that the program has volunteers, but do you see a need for more volunteers even now more than ever?
Well, I mentioned earlier how the economic situation for many families in King County is getting worse because of the overall general economic recession. But as a result of that, it means more and more families, and in particular families who are seeking divorce or seeking access to the court to resolve some sort of family law issue, really can't afford a lawyer, and more of them are falling under the $70,000 maximum combined income rate. And so there more and more families are now eligible for CASA services. Another troubling issue is that the court itself has a program called Family Court Services, which does provide some of these services sometimes, but that program is currently at risk because King County Superior Court is facing budget cuts like every other branch of government in King County. So those people, if they're not going to be served by Family Court Services, the court is going to look for somebody else to provide that objective voice for the children and advocate for their best interests. And it may very well be, as we see how things turn out over the next few months, it may very well be that Family Law CASA is the only place that those kind of services are going to be available.
Wow. So it sounds like even more volunteers than ever. Are there volunteers? I know that the population that are served, that I know that it might be very helpful to have even more men. I heard that there would be helpful to have that. Is that true?
Indeed. Well, we would like to, because we anticipate that there's going to be a big increase in the necessity for our services, we're really pushing for a large number of increased volunteers. But in particular, we have 14% of our current volunteers are men. So we would really like to have an increase in the number of men volunteers we have. We are having increased services down in the south part of the county, so people who either live in South King County or who are willing to travel to South King County. We need people from all economic stations in life to provide these services, to provide that other point of view on what might be in the best interest of the child. And certainly with racial minorities, approximately 33% of the children that we serve are of racial minorities, but only about 10% of our volunteers are. So it would be, while we need volunteers in general, having volunteers in those particular groups would be most helpful in making sure that we get a well-rounded and all-inclusive view that's presented to the courts in these cases.
Right. What could people do if they're interested in applying to be a CASA volunteer? I know you mentioned online. Is that how you they can just apply online?
They can apply online. It's www.familylawcasa, which is CASA.org. And there's a tab for volunteers. There's an application online, and there's a long description about what volunteers do in the program itself. So it's a good resource to look at.
And I know you're part of the board, Judge Spearman, and you're currently a mediator with JDR. Why are you involved with this? I know obviously as a judge and passion, but why really the CASA program?
Well, it really comes from my experience as a judge. I spent almost 2 years as a family court judge when I was with King County Superior Court. And so I had the opportunity to see any number of family law cases. And I know how difficult it is to make that decision about how you're going to reconfigure a family, how you're going to decide who the primary parent is, how you're going to decide who is how much time the other parent is going to be able to spend with the child. Those are really critical decisions, some of the most important decisions a judge will ever make when he or she sits on the bench. You have to have the best information available. And in terms of who's going to go out there and do all those interviews and talk to the child and make that recommendation, it's impossible to do if you don't have that. So I know that from my own personal experience as a judge. And when I resigned from the bench and was asked to be a board member of Family Law CASA of King County, my reaction was immediate. I would love to do it because I want to keep the program going. And I know the judges who are still on the King County Superior Court bench, especially those in family court, really feel the need for that for the organization to continue. And I'll do what I can to make sure that that happens.
And for those out there who are watching, they may not have the time to volunteer. Is there something that they could do in order to support this program?
Sure. We are always looking for financial donations. Being a nonprofit, we rely solely on donations and grants. And so online donations, send us a check. We ask for corporate sponsorships for some of our fundraising events. So we're always looking for more people to do that. We're looking for new board members at times. Serving on committees of the board, and also if people just want to come in and help, for instance, at a fundraising event, checking people in at the desk, things of that nature. So any sort of volunteering we can usually accommodate and are happy to hear from folks.
That's great. And just to make sure, because there are other CASA programs, this is the Family Law CASA program.
Correct.
And there's another program as well, just so the difference between the two?
Right. King County has a dependency CASA program, which is operated by the King County Superior Court. And it deals with kids who've been brought into the juvenile justice system under its Title 13 is the case law, where CPS has stepped in and may have removed a child from the home because of abuse or neglect. Those children can possibly end up in foster care. It's not an absolute given, but they are afforded a CASA volunteer, and older children in those cases sometimes are appointed an attorney. But similar model, different program.
So that's the Family Law CASA program, and of course you can't say enough about the work that they also do as well with dependencies, very tough cases in working with youth. Well, I just want to thank both of you very much for being on this show. I mean, and I say that because not only for being here, but to talk about the good work of the CASA program and how important it is to our system. And so please keep up the great work, and we appreciate all that you do every day.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity. We appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed our show. This special episode shows us all the power we have to change and shape the lives of our youth. To find out more about volunteering for the CASA program, visit this website. I'm Bonnie Glenn. Thank you so much for joining us for Juvenile Justice.